All right, good morning, people. Bob here, back once again. Let's talk about some Bitcoin, shall we? Weekly chart in front of us here. We talked about it yesterday. Bitcoin was up here. Said ideally it would hold there. Didn't. Ideally, it's going to hold somewhere in this region, right? I mean, ideally somewhere between here and where it's at right now. Ideally, one of those two areas will hold up. Let's see. Yeah, I wanted to check that real quick. I mean, there are no divergences taking place on here, at least based on the weekly chart. We had the positive ones here and here, and even though we didn't get a negative divergence here. Up here we did. Up here we did, but it took a while to play out, a couple months actually. But anyway, long story short, that I'm just getting at it with this is the simple fact that, right now I don't have a reason to believe that this thing should just come right back off the rails. And not to say that it couldn't because of the lack of divergence, but I'm more inclined to believe at the moment that based on the MACD histogram, the RSI, all these different factors. And again, we've been talking about this, that I figured there was a good chance Bitcoin on the RSI would probably come down here and test this line right here, right? And then it's just a matter of does it bounce off of there as the week progresses. And we're going to find out in the next 48 hours, really. I mean, this it has to happen soon. Because if it's not going to bounce off of there, that means it's coming back into oversold territory. And who knows if we just stay mired in misery down there again. But right now, this is where we're at. So we got to expect that there is going to be a rebound coming out of here, at least for now. Now, if we start to lose these levels, we lose this level. We don't want to lose this. I mean, that would maintain our uptrend, right? You can see right here where this would cross over, and this is the uptrend line that we've been on for a month and a half now, basically. You get what I'm saying. I mean, it started here. It didn't feel like an uptrend when it hit this number, but again, since then it's been in an uptrend for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 weeks, or at least 5 and change. All right, so we want to see it bounce off of this trend line, ideally. So again, I'm just kind of looking at this number here, 20,200 ish. I don't want to see it go lower than that. Period. I don't want to see that. And we'll see. The interesting thing is, again, Bitcoin it keeps giving us the same stuff over and over again, as far as when I look at this thing, like it's just been fake out after fake out, really. So now we're down here, so this is interesting right here. This candle, although don't get me wrong, ideally we wanted it to stay above this white line, right? This 21 simple. But in terms of where it actually closed out at, it's right here at this supportive area here, and it didn't bounce up. It didn't bounce up off of it. It actually just continued down and came into this area. And I think that's where I would look for, some potential positivity to come back out of this, maybe. I think today could potentially be a day where we just kind of see it trade sideways too. It may not, continue to dip down today. And again, just because of support and resistance here and here. But we'll see. So I think at least as of right this moment, just kind of looking at the daily picture, I would not anticipate anything lower than maybe 20,600-ish, 20,560. I did look at the chart last night, and I'll show it to you on my shorter term time frames. But 20,300 was kind of a number that I'd had pegged. 20,350-ish was a number I had pegged that it could ultimately come back to. There are a few things here that are not exactly positive in our favor at the moment. Again, daily chart, 24-hour chart. we got Bitcoin coming down here. Stochastic RSI says this is a sell right now. And that's simply where the blue line crosses below the orange line. And you can see, I mean, looking at historical, here we've got a cross that took place. It typically takes a few days to play out. Here we got a cross that took place, took a few days to play out. What we were hoping for was that, if we drew this trend line here, we were hoping it would bounce off of this and recover. And it started to here and here, but again, both of these just ended up being bullish fake outs. So right now, there are downside scenarios in play. And we've talked about it. I mean, it's, if this is if it comes out of here, all right, we're back down 16,000. If we are in fact getting something that ends up looking an awful lot like an invert, like a head and shoulder kind of a thing, then you maybe end up with a scenario where, and this would be a shoulder. This is the head forming, and then we got maybe another shoulder that will form over here. When Bitcoin comes back up to 21,750 and gets rejected, you could pretty well assume that pattern would have some validation at that point. Same concept, measured move down here. I don't know. I don't. Again, I say it all the time. I don't get to make the decision. I just get to tell you what I can see as far as what could happen. Maybe the one thing I would say that maybe is sort of concerning outside of this part right here is this guy, this rounded pattern that I put on the chart. Looks fairly obvious that this thing has currently lost that pattern. And it's the RSI. It's not going to be perfect. So I mean, I could make some adjustments to this and find a way to make it fit. Maybe actually connect it. Maybe this was a fake out here. I connect this, and this, and then all of a sudden, if I shift this thing over, potentially this thing actually does end up. Oh, look at that magic! Now we're back inside the pattern. So I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that. That we are in fact in a position where we've totally lost this, but it sure looks like it. And then right now it's returning to the lower base, the lower trend line that started this portion of the uptrend. Right, we're actually, so we had this initial move down, this move down, and we're back again. Right. So, question becomes, can Bitcoin find a way to turn this, well, not turn, but to maintain this as support? It really needs to, right? It needs to. Otherwise, again, we're heading down here, and that's going to facilitate a move down into this region at a minimum, if not further down. So, again, and also too, keep in mind this trend line right here, this yellow one, technically it's not a trend line in and of itself. It is part of a greater trend, which is this downtrend of this, what looks like a giant bull flag, basically. Because we had we had this huge bearish move or bullish move from March of 2020 all the way up until basically April 2021, right? And then it's flagging since then, which means it's basically setting, here it set a higher high, but again, this probably should have never actually happened. That was bullish fake out all day. But you come down here and you set a series of, you drive lower 3 times. Well, technically speaking, we only got our second drive lower here. So, typically a bullish flag would have 3 drives lower, whereas here we've got this one, and then we've got this guy here. So would it be logical to believe that there's maybe one more to come? Sure. And then especially after getting rejected here, I think it makes it more logical. And maybe we do end up with something that ends up looking eerily similar to this guy right here, where it's, we came in to set this higher high, but, Here you go. Here's a daily bullish divergence. Here's the daily bullish divergence. You can see what happened. I mean, it took a few days again for this one to play out, but that was a bullish fake out. And then it dragged way down. You know, where can we see daily bull or bearish divergence, daily bearish divergence, daily bear. So again, you know, it's not a given that everyone's going to send it cascading way down into the pits of despair, but you know, with the amount of volume here, it's tough to say. It's tough to say. I mean, it's, you know, again, you got an upside picture and a downside picture. The upside picture looks like it's coming apart at the moment because, again, we didn't want to lose this level, and we sure as hell didn't want to lose to 21. Now we just got to hope that it bounces off this level and gets, and then just blasts right back off over this 21.8 number. Otherwise, again, that's where the downside comes in. At the bare minimum, if it keeps cascading down, I'd say, you know, we start looking in here in this 20,300 range, which I mentioned earlier, and I'll show you where that shows up on my shorter term chart. Let's zoom in a little bit more on the action here and see exactly what we're seeing. Now this is going to be an interesting 4-hour candle here, right? Like, so we you know, same concept here as far as what this is. You know, this looked like it wanted to be a bull flag, right? So we had this big upward move. You're driving down 1, 2, 3 times. You had this real nice pop off this level here just to reverse course and just get dumped on, right? Now we're sitting on top of the 200 simple on the 4-hour chart, and realistically, gotta hold it. The only way that we lose that line and this doesn't become problematic is in the event that maybe this ends up being a bearish fake out and it pops right back into this falling channel, bull flag. You know, if it pops back in here and then busts out of there, okay, great, that's perfect. But if it comes down here and gets, you know, say it pops back up here to 21,333 and then rolls back over, again, we're heading down, you know. So it should be interesting. Should certainly be interesting for sure. You know, that's the 4-hour outlook. I mean, gotta hold this. Gotta hold it. Period. Have to hold this. If it doesn't hold, down we go. Bare minimum on this chart looks like 20,715. But again, I think that, you know, numbers are probably lower than that in reality. Let's see what the hourly chart is showing us, and I don't think it's now this one. That one's the regular. The 4-hour chart I just showed you there is just the regular candles. These are the Heikin-Ashi, and you can see that even here, you know, anytime these ones are green, that means that there is in fact an uptrend of whatever magnitude in play, and then anytime they're red, it's showing that there is, in fact, a trend in play. Even though if you looked at this on a regular candle chart, this is much more choppy in here. But this suggests that basically this thing's just been down from here. You know, interesting thing about this is that, you know, I think there is this level of... Now, this one looks a little different, right? This one I still have within this kind of falling channel look. And I think it's just as valid as the other one I showed you. The only difference being is that, you know, this one I think I kind of included this guy in the other one, whereas on this chart I've got it just catching just the wicks down. And for now it's still holding it, technically speaking, right? It in fact is still holding it. So, you know, possible this thing just comes down, bounces off this 20,650, 20,700, pops back up. Again, tough to say. You know, and I guess kind of zooming out on the bigger picture here, and we talked about this recently, like, you know, when I said that we would make moves to the upside, I'd said, you know, probably the 618, the 702, 786. One of those three levels was going to reject us, and unfortunately it was the 618. Problem is that it showed us, you know, just briefly, you know, popping up over, bullish fake out, drag down, and here we are. You know, This doesn't look good either. This RSI right here. The stochastic is saying it's a buy, but it also looks like it's prepared to roll back over. But this little structure here is ugly. That's not really the type of stuff you want to see. Now, at the end of the day, does it mean that it just keeps dumping into the ground? Not necessarily, because you got this one that has some similarities. Over here, you got this guy that had some similarities, but it wasn't the end of the world. It did reverse out of there, but again, none of this is what we want to see, really. I think we end up probably popping up into this range today. And then if it can flip this back into support, then at that point we can start looking at coming back up here, retesting this, and then bouncing out again. But again, I don't think any of that is a given. But we did get, one other thing I would want to point out though is that we did get what we talked about before though. So we had this cup forming, and granted, it's a kind of a vertical cup, if you will, a diagonally vertical cup. But it did exactly what we talked about. One of two things was going to happen, right? This was either going to come out of here and burst to the upside and put in just, massive candles, probably blowing through all the way up to this level right here, or it was going to put in a handle, and here is the handle. So, assuming that we can safely assume that this is in fact maybe a third drive down in this pattern, then we could safely say that, all right, it should bounce off here and then up we go. At the very least back to here, right? Should at least get back to this level. So we'll see. Let's zoom in on the shortest term time frames, get this thing wrapped up. I can see Bitcoin is doing some doom and gloom push down here. I think based on this chart, I think the number that I said 20,350-ish. This is it right here. 786 reverse fib retracement based off of this as the 1.0, because again, and on this one, basically what I did is I negated the bulk of the moves that came down below that line, just because when if you flip this over to a certain time frame, you can more easily paint a picture where certain lines would make sense. So from a daily standpoint, this line right here, let me get zoomed in there. So from a daily standpoint, this level right here actually made a ton of sense, right? Like you can see where daily candles actually close basically right on or below it or around it. So that made sense from a daily standpoint. That doesn't mean that in the short term you don't lose that temporarily. Kind of like this candle right here, it came down and put in a big nasty bearish move down below this lower trend line, but it still recovered back up to it before the day closed and then blasted off from there. Same concept here. This thing could very well come down here to this 20,350-ish level, 342, bounce right up off there, close the day out where we would need it to, which again, somewhere in that general region that it's at already. And then from there, and let's move that out just a little bit. And then from there, make the move to come back into this pattern here. Again, this kind of falling channel, bull flag type pattern here. And then blast off again, at least back to the top of the larger pattern. But again, it all starts with holding this. So we need 20,342 to be the lowest that we probably go. And then bounce up off of that. And that's pretty much what I'm going to be looking for at this stage. Will be those two things. Those are the numbers I'm going to be looking for, and then hopefully from there we can start another recovery up the charts here. Otherwise, again, we can be prepared that a number similar to this is in play, or maybe not, probably not this far down, but something there, or maybe as far down as like here, based on the other charts we were looking at. And again, at the very least, it's a feasibility, simply because MACD looks like trash at the moment. It's curling back down. Stochastic RSI is in the sell. and then this guy here. Again, just saying it though, if this is a bull flag, here's drive 1, drive 2, and we're in the midst of drive 3 to the downside for a potential recovery. But again, gotta hold, recover, reclaim, blast off. Okay, so downside again, 20,300. Upside, I won't put any hard targets out there for now. But again, if we get the recovery that we need, should be able to at least come back up to here. Maybe potentially by week's end. Otherwise, again, I would expect the week probably ends up much closer to down here. So let's see what it does for us. It's that time, Bitcoin. Show us what you got. Hey, we appreciate you guys. Catch up soon. Thanks so much as always.